Greetings, friends. It's good to be with you again. This is Phil Amerson on the To Be and Do podcast, part of the Belonging Exchange. And as you know, we work in the area of bringing people together, the importance of interdependence and not just independence, the importance of reaching across differences and building new neighbors, new neighborhoods, and relationships with neighbors. About a week ago, I had the wonderful gift of an email that connected me with someone I had known years ago, named John Wagner, Reverend John Wagner. He's a member of, well, now the Ohio Conference. It used to be the West Ohio Conference. And John pastors a church part time, but he's also one of the founders and former chairs of United Methodist for Kairos Response. And for people who don't yet know that organization, and we're talking with John because we want many more people to know this organization. Their concerns are with the situation in Palestine, Israel, especially since the tragedy of the war in Gaza that continues seemingly unabated, even though there's talk of ceasefire all the time. John, uh, thank you for joining us to share about this. And I know you're one of the people that has actually been in Gaza in the last 18 months, visiting there and the West Bank. Can you tell us a little bit more about Kairos and your concerns and what we can do as people of faith?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I'm so glad to be with you. Um, I first went over there in 2008. I went over there means Israel and Palestine. It was the I was part of a group of 100 United Methodists. We were clergy and lay, and we were invited by the mission staff of the United Methodist Church to go over and see it for ourselves. I wouldn't say I was neutral, but I was certainly not an activist at that point, and I'd studied Jewish theology and literature and cherished Jewish friends, and didn't want to have anything to do with anything anti-Semitic, and thought maybe there was some middle ground and so forth. A lot of people have that attitude, and I went over and it just changed me. So I came back fired up to do something, and in particular to help the United Methodist Church divest from companies that support the occupation. And what that meant is kind of a limited, targeted kind of divestment, specifically aimed at removing our investments from the building of settlements, the tearing down of Palestinian homes. All of that was happening back then in 2008, and, earlier in this uh, century. At any rate, I found there were other United Methodists concerned about this. We uh, decided to name ourselves United Methodists for Kairos Response because there's a Kairos Palestine document. It was modeled after Kairos, South Africa. Kairos is the Greek word that means a propitious time or the right time, the necessary time, something like that. And so South Africa used it, religious folks in South Africa used it to talk about how the church needs to respond in this particular situation. And because we were also wanting to be part of boycotts and divestment as a nonviolent moral means of changing behavior, we decided to call ourselves that after the Kairos Palestine document. So this came out of Palestinian Christians, the small Palestinian Christian community there that is just terrific in my opinion, and they've been so helpful and courageous and has stood up for all Palestinians. That movement grew, and we had our failures and successes, but mainly it was working with our Board of Pensions, now called Westpath, and while we worked through the denomination, they did kind of their own research around sustainability, whether certain investments are advisable or in violation of the United Methodist Book of Discipline and our social principles. So up till now, we as Collective United Methodists have divested from a prison company that was operating, I think, in the West Bank, and then 5 Israeli banks put a screen against further investment in that. Um, and just last year, in April of last year, United Methodist Church met in General Conference, and we voted to call for the removal of Israel bonds. Israel bonds are the bonds that you invest in. You get a certain kind of guaranteed return. Um, Israel is using that money primarily to fund its military operation in Gaza. When you said I'd been to Gaza, I have to tell you that I've been within 100 yards. It was
Wow.
last September, and I was with an interfaith delegation. We prayed outside of those walls, and we could hear the bombs going off. But it was still pretty powerful, and for me. And then we went to the kibbutz that was attacked on October 7th, 2023. The rabbi there, Avi DeBush, is head of Rabbis for Human Rights, and he was pretty much on our side. He's a liberal Zionist, which means he still likes to see, Jewish sovereignty in the Holy Land, and that doesn't sit well with everybody. But on the other hand, he's still calling for a ceasefire and willing to do that within Israeli society.
Well, John, thank you for this work. And there's so much to pick up on. I think I told you I've been to Israel, Palestine several times, but the last time was about the first time, or the one time you were there, or maybe more, in 2008. Um, as I think I told you, I was able to be in Gaza, but it was in the 1980s,
Right.
a very different time. And I still remember as a child, my father came back from visiting Gaza. And I remember his reports. This would have been in maybe the 1950s. One of the things that is puzzling and distressing to me is how so many people of faith, Christians in the United States, have no idea of the Palestinian Christian presence.
Yes.
And if unless I'm wrong, I'm sure I'm not wrong. My dad, I can remember, talked about visiting the mayor of Bethlehem, who was a Christian. And he talked about 25% of the population of Jerusalem being Christian. And something's happened over these last 50, 60 years, hasn't it? Uh,
Yeah, Bethlehem still has the largest Christian population in all the West Bank, but it's dwindling. Christians and Muslims get along much better than people realize. There's been intermarriage and they mix in schools and in politics and everything else. But there is a distinctive Christian community there. It's one of the reasons it's dwindling is that Palestinian Christians tend to be a little better educated and able to get out, find jobs
right,
elsewhere, emigrate.
right,
And a lot of people would like to do that, just get out of there, and they want their kids out of there too.
right,
So, yeah, Palestinian Christians. There's a friend of mine, Alex Awad, who is one of the great Christians in my view. He was a former United Methodist missionary to his own home country. He
right.
uh, he was one of the deans at Bethlehem Bible College. Just a terrific fellow, and he's witnessed for us at General Conference several times. He gets approached when he gives a talk, and sometimes people will say, "Well, when did you become a Christian? When did you encounter Christ? Who told you about Jesus?" And just assuming it was some Westerner who did this, and it sounds absurd, but people just, for some reason, don't think that they don't. I mean, they understand that Christianity was birthed in the Holy Land, but they don't associate people from there with Palestinian Christians. So we're all their descendants. And
Yeah,
I know Alex, and he politely let her know that his family's been Christian for 2,000 years. So this is a common thing, and it's a I think um, I just wish, even though it's a pretty small part of the population, it has outsized influence, should have outsized influence, especially within the church. And I believe they're just deliberate attempts to marginalize their voices on the part of those who are pro-Israel for whatever reason.
You were sharing with us before I took it another direction about visiting the kibbutz that was attacked. Share a bit more about that experience and the rabbi you met.
Well, this was a few. This was fairly early in our trip. We were an interfaith delegation, so Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists. Most of the delegations that are being sent now are just Christian delegations. They work through Sabeel, which is
Right.
one of the main Christian groups there and advocacy groups there, Palestinian Christian groups in Palestine. We and Zionism is a kind of a nationalist movement. There are different strands of Zionism. There is a strand of more liberal or progressive Zionism that finds its origins in some of the original uh, colonizers who were, in fact, hoping to create a more egalitarian society. So there is that strand in Zionism, and as Jews see it, or the Jews in Palestine see it. This particular rabbi I felt was very sincere, having experienced that attack and survived it, knowing people have been kidnapped or killed. His witness was especially significant. However, because he does not favor, a one-state solution with equal rights for everybody to be in leadership, um, some of the group were upset with him and actually didn't get off the bus to talk to him. But I was pleased to do that, and he obviously has a relationship with a lot of Palestinians, believes in equal rights and stopping the bombing and the killing.
Let's just rehearse some of the basics that people don't know. For instance, access to water or access to travel or military service and how people are privileged in Israel if they have that. It is rather haunting, astonishing, amazing to me that the ignorance. I still remember being in the West Bank uh, when and see, you knew the Palestinian homes because they had water tanks on their roof.
Right.
And
And
just next and the water could be cut off at any time by the Israeli government. And then there was the audacity, I think it was down near Jericho, for Israel to build a water park in the West for Israelis. I mean, some of this is just astonishing to me.
it is it is astonishing, and I think for that it's so crazy that when you say it, when you say that Israel's stealing water, I mean, sending tapping the aquifers in the West Bank, the same ones that Palestinians could use, and not giving them their own water. They have to collect rainwater, those kinds of things. You know, the settlements pouring their filth down onto Palestinian
Right.
villages. All these things just, uh, I mean, it goes even beyond that. I mean, we were there, we went into the West Bank, we were told we were part of a protective presence effort. And that was basically to show Westerners visiting these little villages that are terrorized routinely by settlers and sometimes the IDF. And their crops are burned, their animals are killed, those kinds of things. It's what the word you used was audacity. It just strikes your ear as this must be exaggerated. I can't imagine these brave, settlers or brave people who forged a paradise out of the wilderness, in Israel and Palestine are like that. But it's just that absurd and just that crazy. I hesitate to quote it. I have it somewhere in my bookcase, but Arthur Miller in I think Incident at Vichy. It's a play that he wrote, and he were talking about some people coming to terms with the Holocaust, and they said that the very um, fact that it's just so unbelievable makes calls you to attention. That it's the fact that nobody could make this up uh, is compelling in itself, and causes you to do further investigation, perhaps even believe it. So I didn't believe it until I saw it, and for honestly, there's almost no. I wish there were, but there's almost no substitute for visiting yourself and seeing it firsthand.